morning, school. Good morning, sir. Welcome to a very special assembly. This is, of course, our investiture ceremony for our captains and prefects for 2022, and it's one of the very important and very special mornings and assemblies in the school. We'll begin this service by singing the opening hymn, Standing on the Promises, hymn number 35 on page 27. Please be seated. I'll request the headmaster, Mr. Ratcliffe, to read to us from the Bible.
The Bible reading this morning is taken from Romans chapter 12. Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing and perfect will. For the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the measure of faith God has given you. Just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function. So in Christ, we, who are many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given us. If a man's gift is prophesying, let him use it in proportion to his faith. If it is serving, let him serve. If it is teaching, let him teach. If it is encouraging, let him encourage. If it is contributing to the needs of others, let him give generously. If it is leadership, let him govern diligently. If it is showing mercy, let him do it cheerfully. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord." On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
Thank you, Mr. Ratcliffe. Before proceeding with the actual ceremony, it's that time of the service where, well, the principal has to make an address, obviously maybe on leadership. I've just got a few things to say before I start. I'm always asked questions, and that's a wonderful part of Wynberg-Allen about the role the captains and prefects have and what they're expected to do, and most often how on earth they're supposed to do it, because it's an extremely difficult job. This year I've had even, which is very good, even more questions than before. So I thought that today this address, or whatever you want to call it, is, well, an attempt to answer those questions. And let me say right at the outset, before I'm accused of getting absolutely forgetful and repeating myself far too often, I'm pleading guilty to using some illustrations and stories that I've used before. On one occasion, probably I am forgetful because I can't remember when, but you can bear with me for that, because I thought that I couldn't find any better way of answering the questions that I've been asked. And let me also add a disclaimer. 80% of what I'm going to say is actually, well, it's been written. I read his books by a person called Simon Sinek, which is what I said. I've used it before. And I thought he's one of the leading experts in the world on leadership. And he's written several books. And he likes to use the style of telling stories and illustrations. So I'm going to repeat myself. What I've done, I try not to do that, but I've done it in at least one investiture ceremony. And I thought I'd use some of those stories again. There are some that I haven't, but that's the disclaimer, that if you've heard it before, especially the staff, and if someone remembers, well, bear with me. I thought that that would be suitable to use again today. So 80%, some things are new and maybe some other thoughts. let me start by saying this is not Simon Sinek so much, but I think any leadership, expert, I'm not one, but would say to the prefects that often there's a mistake all over the world, and this is talking more about the corporate world, where people actually say that now you're in charge of the following people, so this is what you got to do. But that's the first step that is actually wrong, because when you have to assume a leadership position, you're not really in charge of anyone, you have people in your charge. And there's a huge difference in that. And our pledge, which we'll come to, actually talks about service, the people you govern and serve, but it really is more about service than anything else, and it's a very, very difficult, role to have to fulfill in life. So anyway, without further ado, let me go through some of the illustrations. Most of them are Simon Sinek's. The first one is a very interesting one, because I read about it in a book by Simon Sinek, and it actually reminded me of something that happened that I experienced many, many years ago before this book was written. We had a very wise person who was senior to us, obviously wise, I think I realize that now, that time I didn't. We had gone to play a cricket match somewhere, and after the match, I'm going to cut them short, I've got 5 or 6 illustrations I want to very quickly go through, and hopefully when you put them together, it might answer some of the questions, particularly one which is towards the end. We played the match, and these matches were often sponsored or arranged by people who obviously paid the money, and during the match or after the match there was, something that was very, very, it was a big deal for us in those days. You may not think so. There were samosas and maybe some sort of cold drink arranged, and we were always very hungry and pretty much starving, and that was a great thing. So, they were free, obviously, and after that they said, those who want them, you can line up. So, people were doing that, and I was standing at the back and watching. Many of my friends and teammates were there, and one was standing out along with us, and this senior person, this senior cricket player, and he asked him that, why don't you go and get yourself something also? And the answer came back straight, no, I can't be bothered. I'm not going to stand, see the line, it was a very long line. I'm not standing in the line in the heat, it was summer, let it be. While other people were. So I'm cutting it short because Simon Sinek writes the same thing very interestingly in one of his illustrations. Of course, he refers to bagels. I'm not even sure what bagels are, something rather American, but anyway, something to eat, it's good enough. So this senior person said, and I was listening, I wasn't even part of the conversation, I was just listening to it all. He said, can you see the difference in people? Some people can see what they want, which in this case was a samosa and whatever, and some people can see the problem that will come in their way of getting what they want. So I just thought back to this, and Simon Sinek refers to this and says, but that's the first thing you've got to do. You've got to realize what you want in life. And if you are called upon to lead, what is your target? What do you want to achieve? Can you see where you're going? Or can you see the problems that are going to come up when you try to go or lead where you want to lead? So that is actually the introduction of one of his books. You might even wonder, even I thought about it, but when you think about it, you'll see maybe a little later that it makes a lot of sense. So do you know where exactly you're going and where you want to go? I'll move on with some of his other illustrations, just whichever ones I can remember. I don't have any notes, so I'm doing it from memory, so hopefully I'll remember all the ones that I wanted to go through. The second thing he talks about, and this one is really, really important, is an answer. Maybe it's not a very nice suggestion or a reminder to anyone, and everyone here is supposed to be a leader in their own right. Simon Sinek tells a story of, the 18th century, it's quite appropriate these days, and this one I think I haven't used before, so it's quite safe, but it's a very nice one. He tells the story of a fever. These are Corona and COVID times. A fever that existed in Europe and was causing great concern. The name was puerperal fever, or also called the Black Death of childbirth. Remember, 18th century. And people were very concerned because something quite terrible was happening. Women were giving birth to babies and then shortly after that dying. And nobody seemed to know the reason. Of course, there was fear, there was anxiety, and of course, it's a terrible story, and death and disease is never very nice. So people didn't know how to solve this problem, and it kept happening. Scientists and doctors of the day decided to try to solve it, like they always do, and they started researching it. But over 50 years, nobody made any headway. And what would happen, these doctors would do, they did everything. They studied the dead bodies, they conducted autopsies in those days, and then that they did normally, like right through the day, and then they also went and delivered children and came back, and then again they had mothers dying. Until after about 50 years, a person called Oliver Wendell Holmes, he thought, or he realized, which he did, that he had the right answer. There was also a doctor from Hungary at the same time called Semmelweis, or something like that, Semmelweiser, I think, Semmelweiser. He had the same sort of ideas, but people laughed at them and said, don't talk nonsense. And you know what Oliver Wendell Holmes said? He went to these doctors and said, I've figured out what's happening. You are conducting autopsies and whatever else you're doing, and you're touching people who are dead and sick people, and then you are going again and delivering children, but you don't wash your hands. And everybody was angry and laughed at him, made fun. He had a tough time in life, until much later when they realized that he was absolutely right. All it took was for them to wash their hands, and the deaths stopped. Now, a good question is, what's this story got to do with leadership? It wasn't that Oliver Wendell Holmes was a leader, I suppose you could say that, but the moral of the story is that sometimes, and I'm speaking to all of us, including myself, but particularly to you all today, sometimes we are the problem. There's something to keep in mind. Sometimes it's not everybody else, sometimes we are the problem. Those doctors weren't washing their hands. Of course, they didn't have the knowledge those days, but that's the lesson, that sometimes the problem is within us, not outside. In America, they're very proud of one arm or group of their armed forces who are the Navy SEALs. This story I'm sure you've heard before, but it's a very nice one, and I thought I'd particularly put it in here for ourselves meaning the staff in this case, but of course it applies to you as well, because there's often a big discussion when we choose leaders, and I think sometimes the whole school also needs to know how and why. So this question was asked to a person, to a Navy SEAL, a very senior Navy SEAL, and said, how do people get selected to be a Navy SEAL? Because in America, they're meant to be the toughest and the bravest, the most highly trained, the ones who have to do all the difficult jobs. So how do you get selected? And that question is a very good one for all of us as well. And it's a good reminder. So the answer came back, I don't know which kind of people get selected, but I do know the kind of people that don't get selected. And he went on to very quickly explain this, and it's a long explanation, I'm doing it quickly. He said that people come for selection and they come with bulging muscles, they're 6'6", they've got tattoos, and they're very tough, and they are extremely good athletes and brilliant maybe, they can pass all the tests, they can strategize, but most of those people don't actually make it through. He says the people who do make it through, Sometimes they're thin, sometimes they're short, they're not 6'6" with bulging muscles. Sometimes they don't have any muscles at all. Sometimes they may not be the brightest. He said, but there's one thing that all of them do consistently during their training and during their tenure in the Navy SEALs. And that is that when the going gets tough, when people have nothing left to give anymore, I'm not going to say the tough get going, not that. He didn't say that, these are not my words anyway. He said when everything is lost and nothing can be done, the people who care for their teammates, for the ones who are there for the others who are struggling and falling and collapsing, fainting, not managing to succeed. The people who know who's at their left, I'm trying to quote actually from the book if I can remember it, who are aware of who's at their left and who's at their right, and who can look after them and serve them. Those are the people who make it through and who succeed. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Like I said, our pledge actually talks about that. I've always said I don't know who wrote the pledge, but it's got some very nice lines in it. The next story that Simon Sinek uses in the 4 or 5 that I've got, he says that he visited or stayed in a hotel in Las Vegas, and I picked this one not only because I liked the story and it reminded me about Wynberg-Allen actually in a way. I don't have time to go through that, but it did. I haven't traveled very much, I'm not much of a traveler, but I've actually been to Las Vegas, and in one of the hotels that I'm going to mention, I've actually stayed there myself, and I found that Simon Sinek actually was, well, he's right about this. He says he went to a hotel called the Four Seasons, and he went to get a cup of coffee in the morning, and there was a barista there, a person who's at the food counter, whatever it is, the breakfast buffet type thing, and his name was Noah. And he said he was talking and so cheerful that he enjoyed the conversation, and he stood there for a long time. He gave him 100% tip, he said. He stood there and talked to him and found him so interesting, cheerful and happy that he asked him more questions than usual. And he said he asked him, do you like your job? And Noah said, without missing a beat, I don't like it, I love it. It's the best thing ever, and I'm really, really thrilled to be here. So he said, he asked him then, so well, what do you love about it? And he said, what I love about it is that I feel that I am myself over here. Managers come by all day long. Managers, leaders, and every one of them, not just mine, the other ones as well, always ask me how I'm doing, how I'm feeling, and they ask me what they can do to make my life better. How can they help me to succeed and to be happy in my job? And then he added that he also worked in another hotel in Las Vegas, and that's the one that I've actually stayed in once. The name is Caesar's Palace. It's one of the oldest and largest. And it's quite a fantastic building. It's very old, but it's got carvings and statues like replicas of Michelangelo. It's quite fascinating, but Noah told Simon Sinek that I also work, because I have to make ends meet, I do 2 jobs. I work at Caesar's Palace, and over there, all I do is keep my head down and make sure that I get through the day. Because the managers over there, they come on rounds, and they're only coming with one purpose, to see what I'm doing wrong or what we are doing wrong, and to correct us. That is their purpose, because they have to meet deadlines, and they say that you do this or do that, and this is the right way to do it, and make sure you're not doing anything else. And he says, I spend the whole day there just hoping that the end of the day comes and that I can keep my job, get my paycheck, and then go home. So that's the difference over there. I think I'd be happy to say that Wynberg-Allen hopefully is much more like the Four Seasons, but it's a lesson for all of us. Leaders are meant to enable others, not just force our own opinions on them. We probably do sometimes, but the idea is that a leader is meant to enable others so that they can perform at their best, and not just think that we have all the answers and we'll just tell people what to do. Just two more quick stories before the conclusion. One is a very short one. Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela is, well, highly respected all over the world, mostly. There are always people who have different opinions and different things come up afterwards, but while he was fighting against apartheid and so on, of course, Nelson Mandela is highly respected and considered a great leader, at least for the South Africans and for the blacks in particular. So there's a story about him that he was interviewed and he was asked what he thought about leadership and what tip he could give the rest of the world and us. Nelson Mandela responded with a story. He said when he was a boy, he was taken by his father to tribal meetings. Don't forget, for those of you maybe class 7s who maybe are not knowing, that this is South Africa and a very strong tribal system of the Africans. Nelson Mandela said his father took him to tribal meetings where all the elders of the tribe, the leaders, they sat in a circle and discussed the problems and came to decisions, very much like the modern corporate meeting or meetings that we have anytime. And he said he noticed one thing which he picked up from his father. He said his father, though he was the senior most and maybe one of the most respected tribal leaders, if not the most, or the chief if you like, he sat in the circle and he never spoke until everybody else had finished speaking, and then he spoke. Then Simon Sinek adds his comment on this and says that you've often been told, I know you all are told by us many times, in every company and organization people say this, a school is a great place where you hear this advice that you must learn to listen. And that's good advice, but Simon Sinek says more important than that is not just to listen, it's the ability to be able to talk last. First hear the other opinions, the other side of the story, and then only provide your own opinion or give your opinion what should be done or what needs to be done. The last one that I've got today is my favorite. It's an absolute favorite, and I think it fits in beautifully to Wynberg-Allen and what Wynberg-Allen is about, and definitely, again, I'm referring to it again and again, we'll read it out, what's written on these pledges that you're going to take in a short while. This story is about it's a true story from a speech which Simon Sinek reports. I keep saying that I'm not the one who's saying all these things. It's about a former United States Secretary of State, a very, very important position. I didn't do much revision for this, or I didn't even read the books again, I'm just doing it from memory, but I did do one bit of research. I wanted to know how important is the Secretary of State in the United States, so I said, who's the equivalent in India? And the answer I got from Google, hopefully it's right, it may not be, is that the Secretary of State is equivalent to our External Affairs Minister, the Cabinet Minister, one of the top 5 in India, has always said, one of the big posts. So a very important man, he was called to give a speech. And he started his speech by saying this. In fact, I've got one plastic bottle that I've got here. I'm glad it's plastic and not ceramic. But it actually happens a bit to me sometimes in Wynberg, and this speech is a very good reminder and maybe the best lesson that I can leave with you today. So the Secretary of State said that he had been coming to address the gathering year after year, and he said that this day when I came in the morning and I took a taxi. He had retired, by the way, I missed one part. He had retired the previous year. He was no longer the Secretary of State, he was the former Secretary of State. So he told his audience that I took a taxi, I came to the auditorium, the center where the lecture was to be delivered, and I came early to set up my laptop and get ready and prepare my notes and whatever. So I asked someone for a cup of coffee, and they pointed to me and said, there's the coffee machine there. go and take, there's a coffee, you can take it yourself. So he said I went over there and they gave me a thermocol, we call it, styrofoam cup. And I filled my coffee in it. And well, I'm here today. He said, let me tell you why I'm telling you this. He said, last year I was still the Secretary of State. And when I came for this address, when I came down from my hotel room in the morning, there was a car waiting for me. There was a chauffeur. There were 2 people to escort me. They brought me to the center, to the auditorium. They gave me coffee in a ceramic cup, a very fancy cup. And they all hovered around and asked me if I was comfortable or not. And they made sure that I had all these things. But this time, what I got is a thermocol cup. And he said, that's the whole point of what I'm trying to make. And that's the lesson. The ceramic cup, the chauffeur, the car, all the people around me that time, they weren't there for me. They weren't doing that because I was deserving of a ceramic cup. He said, all I ever deserve is a thermocol cup. That ceramic cup is for my position. I was an important person. When the position is gone, I only come back to what I am actually worth, which is a thermocol or a styrofoam cup. And that's what we all are actually ever worth. We should all remember that. That we sometimes get praise, we get awards, we get all sorts of facilities, perks, benefits. I'm talking about the corporate life also. But we should always remember that all we truly deserve is a thermocol cup. All those things are only for the position that we've been given. As by the way, Simon Sinek adds one thing, that since you are extremely young, and even for older people and business leaders, he always adds this. There's nothing wrong in getting perks and benefits. When you get praise, when you get certain privileges and authorities because you have got a leadership position, he said enjoy it. There's nothing wrong in it. That's something you have earned, you have worked hard for it. You can definitely enjoy it. But never ever forget that in the end, it's only a thermocol cup that signifies what we actually are truly deserving of. Everything else is only the position that we've been given. And to conclude, I'm using again one little illustration. This is a statement by Simon Sinek himself. Obviously, he's been around the world delivering addresses. He talks about the fact that he takes many workshops. And he was taking a workshop or a lecture, whatever, like with young people who had succeeded in life, older than you all, but young enough. The kind of people who get into Google and Microsoft and Facebook and Tata Infosys, the achievers all over the world, who have worked very, very hard and achieved what they want, the IITs in India, those kind of people, a large group. And he said he was horrified to find that a large number of them told him that we are well fed up. They just started, but we are fed up. We can't cope. We are not having an impact, quote. We are not having the impact that we want, and we are not succeeding the way we thought we would, all our hard work and our brilliance. We are not changing the world the way that we wanted to. People aren't responding the way we want, and we can't make a difference, so we are disappointed and we want to quit. So Simon Sinek said, I can't believe the fact that all of them had barely been working for just about 6 to 8 months, and they were feeling that they can't make an impact. I think this conclusion actually is an answer to one question that I was asked. He said that the main thing that new, fresh, young, impact makers, leaders, the people, the trendsetters, the ones who are looked up to, have to keep in mind is one word: patience. The world is not going to change just because you or I, someone gets a leadership position. It's a long, hard struggle. It's never going to be easy, and patience is key. In fact, he concluded by saying that I thought these young people were looking at a mountain in front of them, and they were only looking at the summit and saying that, okay, that's what I wanted to achieve, but they're forgetting that in front of them, the actual mountain actually exists. And that's a long, hard climb. But that may not be particularly encouraging, but let me add something to this. I've actually had some of you ask this question and express a little bit of the same sentiment, that are we having enough impact? I think you are, without any doubt in my mind. And all I can say is that you do need to keep in mind that you need to have patience, and things are falling into place, and they will. It's never going to be easy, but then our motto says Excelsior and is based on, I often think, a rather sad yet inspiring poem. I think all of you know it's written by Longfellow. I always have this image, it's the image painted by the poet, but it's about a mountain like you have to climb, and all of you will have to climb mountains in this world, and it's going to be tough, but it can be done. And like what I said, I referred to our school motto. It's about a youth carrying a banner with a strange device. It's a rather sad story, but the point is that he never gives up, and he's perpetually climbing and climbing and climbing to greater heights, which is what Wynberg-Allen is all about. So I want to end by assuring each one of you, I think that your impact is already being felt, and it will continue to be felt. So keep up the good work. God bless you all, and I'm sure that you will contribute, like so many who have gone before, in a great way to Wynberg-Allen, and make Wynberg-Allen a better place. Thank you. We'll move on with the real part of the service, rather than any lectures from the lectern. And we'll start with the investiture, as always, of the school captain for the girls. So I'll request Himanshi to please come on stage. In the name of your head, your staff and your school, I confer on you, Himanshi, the special honor and office of captain. I charge you to carry out your responsibilities as God shall give you wisdom and courage, showing neither fear nor favor toward any, but with sincerity and high purpose. During your year of responsibility, may you know the help of God and the cooperation of those you govern and serve. Will you, God giving you help, promise loyalty to your staff and your school, remembering that where a choice of loyalty is necessary, your first loyalty must be given to your principal and staff. Will you therefore promise this loyalty, knowing that in this office, though there is separation and responsibility, yet there is honor, opportunity, and the privilege of a great service?
In the name of God and of our school, I promise so to serve.
Just so that the new students and the class 7s, who sometimes we maybe didn't do this in the junior school, what Himanshi is doing is signing the pledge that she just promised to take. So she is promising to fulfill the duties that she just promised to carry out. We'll continue with the investiture of the school captain for the boys, and I'll request Anurag Yadav to come on stage. In the name of your head, your staff and your school, I confer on you, Anurag Yadav, the special honor and office of captain. I charge you to carry out your responsibilities as God shall give you wisdom and courage, showing neither fear nor favor toward any, but with sincerity and high purpose. During your year of responsibility, may you know the help of God and the cooperation of those you govern and serve. Will you, God giving you help, promise loyalty to your staff and your school, remembering that where a choice of loyalty is necessary, your first loyalty must be given to your principal and staff? Will you therefore promise this loyalty, knowing that in this office, though there is separation and responsibility, yet there is honor, opportunity, and the privilege of a great service?
In the name of God and of our school, I promise so to serve.
I'll request Nayan Basandrai, the Vice Captain for the girls, to come on stage. In the name of your head, your staff and your school, I confer on you, Nayan Basandrai, the special honor and office of Vice Captain. I charge you to carry out your responsibilities as God shall give you wisdom and courage, showing neither fear nor favor toward any, but with sincerity and high purpose. During your year of responsibility, may you know the help of God and the cooperation of those you govern and serve. Will you, God giving you help, promise loyalty to your staff, your captain, and your school, remembering that where a choice of loyalty is necessary, your first loyalty must be given to your principal and staff? Will you therefore promise this loyalty, knowing that in this office, though there is separation and responsibility, yet there is honor, opportunity, and the privilege of a great service?
In the name of God and of our school, I promise so to serve. I'll request the Vice Captain for the boys, Sartaj Veera Ahuja, to please come on stage. In the name of your head, your staff and your school, I confer on you, Sartaj Veera Ahuja, the special honor and office of Vice Captain. I charge you to carry out your responsibilities as God shall give you wisdom and courage, showing neither fear nor favor toward any, but with sincerity and high purpose. During your year of responsibility, may you know the help of God and the cooperation of those you govern and serve. Will you, God giving you help, promise loyalty to your staff, your captain, and your school, remembering that where a choice of loyalty is necessary, your first loyalty must be given to your principal and staff? Will you therefore promise this loyalty, knowing that in this office, though there is separation and responsibility, yet there is honor, opportunity, and the privilege of a great service?
In the name of God and of our school, I promise so to serve.
before continuing with the investiture for the prefects, as always, we have our school choir presenting a special song. So I'll hand over to the choir who are presenting the song, Thankful.
Some days we find
Thank you, choir. That was beautiful, and let me again tell you how special you all are and how important a part of Wynberg-Allen the choir really is. Thank you so much. We'll continue with the investiture of the prefects for the girls, and I'll request Devyani Vijayvargya, Riya Goyal, Ishita Shah, Navang Sherpa, Akriti Subedi, Malika Bansal, Samia Gupta, Pavitra Esrani, Ishrat Gill, Lasang Lama, Sania Raitka, Vanika Raitka, Kisha Alavadi, Sania Chuk, and Prathna Dalia to come up on stage. Devyani Vijayvargya, Riya Goyal, Ishita Shah, Navang Sherpa, Akriti Subedi, Malika Bansal, Samia Gupta, Pavitra Esrani, Ishrat Kaur Gill, Lasang Lama, Sania Raitka, Vanika Raitka, Kisha Alavadi, Sania Chok, and Prathna Dalia, the special honor and office of prefect. I charge you to carry out your responsibilities as God shall give you wisdom and courage, showing neither fear nor favor toward any, but with sincerity and high purpose. During your year of responsibility, may you know the help of God and the cooperation of those you govern and serve. Will you, God giving you help, promise loyalty to your staff, your captains, and your school, remembering that where a choice of loyalty is necessary, your first loyalty must be given to your principal and staff. Will you therefore promise this loyalty, knowing that in this office, though there is separation and responsibility, yet there is honor, opportunity, and the privilege of a great service?
In the name of God and of our school, we promise so to serve.
request the prefects for the boys, Yuvan Bharucha, Uday Agarwal, Yash Bansal, Devansh Negi, Sumer Singh, Tenzing Dorji, Tenzing Dakar, Shashwat Agarwal, Satanand Singh, Ayush Petwal, Amritesh Singh, Kanishk Agarwal, and Shivansh Agarwal to please come on stage. In the name of your head, your staff and your school, I confer on you, Yuvan Bharucha, Uday Agarwal, Yash Bansal, Devansh Negi, Sumer Singh, Tenzing Dorji, Tenzing Dakar, Shashwat Agarwal, Satanand Singh, Ayush Petwal, Amritesh Singh, Kanishk Agarwal, and Shivansh Agarwal, the special honor and office of Prefect. I charge you to carry out your responsibilities as God shall give you wisdom and courage, showing neither fear nor favor toward any, but with sincerity and high purpose. During your year of responsibility, may you know the help of God and the cooperation of those you govern and serve. Will you, God giving you help, promise loyalty to your staff, your captains, and your school, remembering that where a choice of loyalty is necessary, your first loyalty must be given to your principal and staff. Will you therefore promise this loyalty, knowing that in this office, though there is separation and responsibility, yet there is honor, opportunity, and the privilege of a great service?
In the name of God and of our school, we promise so to serve.
once again, congratulations to our captains, vice captains and prefects. The school is well privileged and honored to have you in these posts, and may you know the help of God, like the pledge says, during this year of service, and continue to take the school to greater heights. Congratulations once again, and God bless you all. Please stand for the school song and national anthem.